Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Space Engineers Plus Me, episode 63. I'm Enigmius, and today it's all about the Gantry. It's the Gantry that's attached to the Atlas that lowers the track ship that holds the drill ship that goes back and forth and drills the things and gathers them and sends them back up into the Atlas. This is the most complicated part of this project because it is doing a number of different things. And if it does any one of them wrong, the whole system breaks down. And if the whole system breaks down, there's the potential for a tremendous amount of damage to the drill ship, to the track ship, and even to the Atlas itself, depending on exactly what happens. So I wanted to do a very methodical kind of testing process where I kind of lay out for myself all the different steps that we need to take in the order that we need to take them so that we can make this thing work. And if there's a problem, we'll identify it in a methodical fashion. So the first problem that we encountered was when we tried to lower the track ship. Now this is done by releasing the merge blocks that are holding the track ship to the Atlas. So most of the time they're basically merged. They're one and the same, and we need to release them because when we use grinders on something, it won't work if we're trying to grind something that's attached to the same grid that the grinder is attached to. So we need to detach them in order to make that work. So what we do is we release the merge blocks. The whole track ship should fall one block. It'll get caught by the blast door blocks that we've got at the very top of the tab that's holding the track ship in place. And then we engage the landing gears that are attached to the whole gantry, and those become the thing that holds everything in place while we do the grinding. But we couldn't get it to drop. We couldn't get the merge blocks. Well, we could get the merge blocks to release. It's easy, you just turn them off. And for all practical intents and purposes, they're released. That was not the difficulty. The difficulty is that we released them and nothing fell. And I mean, we're talking about a pretty substantial amount of weight hanging from this thing. It's not like it's caught up on a little lip somewhere. There's something seriously wrong with the whole mechanism that's preventing this thing from falling. Somehow, in some way, we've managed to connect the track ship to the Atlas in a way other than what we intended. So we have to go through and take a look at everything and see what could possibly be causing this problem. And eventually, I was kind of like, I've got saves and backups of the saves and backups of the backups. So I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to start grinding things down until this thing falls. And we find out exactly what is holding it in place. What it was we had a blast door block that was attached to, or it was intentionally attached to, the gantry that was designed to help keep the tab aligned as it was falling so that it didn't shift side to side too much. But in the process of putting it where we put it, it also attached one of the conveyor blocks on the tab sticking up out of the top of the track ship, attached it to the blast door block as well. So obviously that's not going to work. As soon as we removed it and replaced it with nothing, I was going to replace it with a blast door block, the edges, like the corners, and I tried that and it didn't work. And that was the first thing that I tried. I found the problem. I said, okay, that's what the problem is. I replaced the regular blast door block with the blast door block corner. It was still counting as being attached, so we removed the blast door block corner. Ta-da! Everything falls. So that introduces our next problem. It's all too heavy. It falls and stuff breaks. Now, a lot of the damage done to the gantry itself was as a result of the weakening that we did to the gantry with all the grinding that we did trying to find the element that was holding everything in place. So that I wasn't too concerned about, but the damage to the track ship, where the track ship stopped the descent of the drill ship, was a bigger problem. We've got a pair of welders on the drill ship that go back and forth inside the slot on the underside of the track, and they exist specifically for the purpose of repairing minor damage to the track so that it doesn't have an opportunity to evolve into major damage. But when we're talking about destroying entire sections of the track itself, we need to correct that situation. Now, in this case, the solution was actually fairly straightforward. I just turned on the atmospheric thrusters that are responsible for lifting the track ship whenever it's flying around. If we're flying it around to reposition it, to do whatever, those are some of the thrusters that we would have active. So in this case, those thrusters in conjunction with the gyros and the inertial dampeners mean that when the track ship releases, it's going to apply a certain amount of weight to the drill ship and push it down, but it's not going to have the weight of the drill ship pulling down on it, because the thrusters and the gyros are going to prevent the drill ship from falling on its own and creating that kind of problem. So that was actually a pretty straightforward solution, very easy. It increases the power demands for the drill ship fairly substantially. I was hoping to have both the track ship and the drill ship very low power draw kinds of things, but with the atmospheric thrusters on, and they seem to be on all the time whenever we're kind of in this spot where the drill ship is attached to the track ship the way that it is, they're just on. They're always on, and they're like 98% power draw on the system that we have. So it's going to be a little bit more expensive in the uranium category than I'd originally intended, but it's not going to be so expensive that it's going to be a deterrent. It's just going to be one of those things we have to be aware of if we're leaving it unattended, that is possibly going to run out of fuel. So there's a number of things we could do to correct that. I'm not too worried about it right now. The main thing is just getting this whole damn thing working. So that's kind of the goal. So we've got this set up so that it's going to fall in a more controlled fashion. We got it to fall. We grabbed it with the landing gears. We used the grinders to grind off all the bits, as far as we know, all of the bits that need to be ground off. And then the next step is to reattach what's left of that tab to the Atlas with the merge blocks again, because we had 2 pairs of merge blocks on the tab and just 1 pair on the Atlas. So there was the pair on the tab that lines up with the Atlas was on the bottom, and then directly above those was the secondary pair that falls down, and now that secondary pair is lined up with the pair on the Atlas so that we can remerge them, weld 2 new merge blocks above the secondary pair, get rid of the 2 underneath the secondary pair, what were the original pair. And that's, I mean, the system is kind of the endless leapfrog of swapping around the merge blocks and the blast door blocks that prevent the track ship from falling. That's basically all it does. So that's what we tried to do. We did the grinding, and then we tried to reattach the merge blocks, get everything connected and lined up again. Couldn't do it, because by that point I was a little bit tired and a little bit derpy, and the thought never even occurred to me that I have those wheels on suspensions in the position that they're in specifically so that we can bump and nudge that tab sticking up out of the top of the track ship for whatever reasons we might need to bump and nudge it. In this case, we could have used it to bump the tab a little bit closer to the landing gears so that it would be properly lined up and less likely to have issues with being properly aligned so that we can make things merge. And then once they're merged, they're absolutely aligned. They're as aligned as they'll ever be. And then we can weld it all up together. So I kind of set it aside at that point to take a little bit of a break, do some other things, refresh the old brain. Came back, said, I've got this beat. I know how to do this. I can make the thing drop, and then we can grind it, and then we'll bump it with the wheels. And part of the process is getting the wheels tuned properly so that they do a good job of bumping things around without being so soft and squishy in the suspension that they don't actually move anything. They just kind of rub up against it and kind of give more than the thing they're trying to move is going to give. So what ended up happening in the process of testing it is I cranked it down a little bit too tight, and smush. It's one of the things that the wheels and the suspensions, when you're using them as pincers like this, they like to do. They like to crush things, and they do it very, very well. But before it crushed those blocks, it was very clear to me that it was doing a much better job of getting everything aligned and ready to try again with the merge blocks. And in fact, I was quite successful after reloading and going through the process again to get it lined up properly, get it, get the tab pressed up against the landing gear so everything was aligned. The merge block, as soon as I turned it on, there was about a half-second pause, and then it locked, everything aligned, and we were able to use the welders to weld the pieces that needed welding, and everything was looking good. It was looking like proof of concept in the bag. What I didn't realize necessarily at the time is that I haven't quite set up the drills and the welders in the necessary positions just yet. So they're not doing enough grinding and welding around the merge blocks that we need to be doing. Now, this is a very minor sort of detail, but it's going to take me a little time to kind of sit down and duplicate what went wrong, figure out not only where I need to have the drills and welders in order to correct the problem, but how to make them all fit together, because it's getting awfully cramped in that area around the gantry. So that's my next project, and once that is successful, that will be done. It'll be done. That's all we have to do. We've already tested it. So far, I've managed to make it release, drop, realign, grind, remerge, weld, and then drop again. And it was when we dropped the second time that I noticed that things weren't quite lined up the way that they were supposed to be just yet, which we can fix just by moving around the drills and the welders. So the next episode, what I would like to be able to show you is the finished gantry assembly and a trench that's just as long as this one, but a fair bit deeper, because we still need a ton of ice to finish filling our hydrogen tanks in preparation for our trip to Mars. The episode after that will be the blueprint episode, where we kind of do an overview of the entire ship, the gantry, the track ship, the drill ship, so that people have an understanding of how they work, and then they get the blueprints along with that so they can build them in their own worlds and mess around with them. And then after that, we should be on our way to Mars. So it's been a long haul. I'm absolutely confident that this last little bit of correcting and tweaking is something that's not going to take weeks. It's not even going to take days. I just need a couple of hours to sit down and get it done. Hopefully, I'll have a chance to do that tomorrow night, and then we will we'll get some footage of it, and we'll get it to testing, and we'll get some footage of it digging down deeper into the deepest trench that I've ever seen, ever, anywhere. And we'll go from there. So if you want to be notified when I add future videos in this series and other series, other games, other stuff, you can subscribe to my channel. You can follow me on social media. Links for social media in the information box below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.